I'm Amy from Capitalise, if I don't know you already. I am Senior Partnerships Manager here, and I am joined by Alastair Barlow of Flinder.
Hi everybody, I'm Alastair. I am founder and chief dreamer here at Flinder.
And we just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. Today we will be exploring the controversial topic of how to charge more and keep your clients happier. So a little bit of background before we get into the nitty gritty with Alastair about how he is managing to do this at his firm. So what we have found at Capitalise and throughout the whole accounting industry is that there has been a big shift as people have moved onto the cloud, and that is that historically you may have spoken to your client once, twice a year, doing the compliance work, getting the annual accounts filed, but now because you've got live up-to-date data, you're maybe speaking to them quarterly or even monthly, or in
I'd suggest even more than monthly, actually, in our case, to be honest.
Daily. And so you have more contact points in an easier way than you ever would have had with your clients historically. So what does this mean for the accountant? So there's been a big shift also in who businesses trust as their most their closest advisors, or people to them that they would take advice. It comes family, and then also their accountant is in there. So 48% of businesses would say that the first port of call would be their accountant when they've got questions.
Shame on the other 52%, I'd say.
Yeah, well, I'm sure your case is 100%. So with this increased contact you have with your clients, it also means that there is a lot of opportunity for an accountant to add more value to their clients. So potentially you have chosen to uptake different software vendors and actually start referring your client and engaging on a deeper level with them, embedding yourself into the business. So, the questions that might come up are about cash, which is where Capitalise comes in. The accountant who historically may have assisted in going to the bank, which aren't as receptive in the SME space anymore, are now able to get embedded in the culture of funding, embed the culture of funding into their business, and help their clients by referring them to Capitalise and working with us on the back end to make sure that the clients have a successful cash influx into their business, and they're supporting them in the responsible and right way.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So for us, as vendors, we definitely see the value add in this. We work with over 1,000 accounting firms in the UK, and we're seeing an uptake in that all the time, and we really know how that makes a difference. But there's so many other software products or technology products that you can use, as well as just the accountant themselves, to add value. And so what we really wanted to do was flip this into an accountant's perspective who is charging more and keeping his clients happier, to understand really what he's doing differently to make sure that his clients are being successful, and that he's got, what is it, a 0% client churn rate?
Yeah, 2018, 2019, 0% churn for clients. And pretty happy NPS score on our clients as well above 90.
So for us, maybe we should start with a little bit of a background on Flinder and your guys' journey.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Amy. And great to catch up with you again. I think the last time we caught up was in a hot tub in the ski slopes back in January. So, nice to be fully clothed this time, I guess. But in terms of us, who we are, so Flinder, we're just over 2 years old. We started life in February the 1st, 2017. And really it was spawned out of a vision that myself and my business partner Luke Streeter had, in terms of what we saw was a huge gap in the market.
Yeah.
Right? And so our backgrounds, myself and my business partner, 25 years collectively at Big Four. We had experiences across a number of lines of service, and interestingly there's a whole debate about compliance versus advisory and what does that mean. Part of my time in the Big Four, I spent about 5 years in our advisory practice, right? That is very much, mindset is, it is advisory, right? Mm-hmm. We call it, that's the whole service line. generating over £1 billion in revenue in the UK alone. And so very much the experiences that Luke and I have had, we kind of took those skill sets and almost, if you like, applied the same principles to SMEs that large multinationals were getting, in terms of a much more improved finance function, in terms of efficient, slick processes, information delivered timely, information integrated across all parts of the business, enterprise performance management, leveraging technology, data, such a plethora of data in the business. And so we kind of took those experiences and thought, there's a big gap here in the SME market. And essentially Flinder was born on the 1st of Feb 2017 with this grand vision of what we wanted to achieve. Just myself and Luke on day one, no clients, restrictive covenants in place from Big Four, no revenue, no staff, no salary. Right, and that's what it was just over 2 years
Sounds
ago.
Ideal.
Yeah, just over 2 years ago. And so we actually classify ourselves as an accounting, consulting, and data analytics business, because they're the three primary things that we provide our clients in terms of the solutions to some of their problems and pains. And that's really where we start life, is what the pains and the problems of our clients, not this is something we do. We sell stats, we sell this, we sell that. We start with and listen to them. We'll get on to more of this in our methodology. Listening to our clients and really taking away what their pains, their challenges are. But yeah, very much accounting, consulting, and data analytics, those three different aspects, three different parts to our business.
Okay. We know you're amazing. But from this, all these things that you're doing potentially different from what other people have done in the past is also, you are charging your clients, what is it, double the market rate?
So maybe even more, maybe 3 to 4 times actually, if you look at some independent studies. I'm not necessarily sure. We're obviously an accounting, consulting, data analytics practice, so we have each of those different areas have different margins, have different price points. But yeah, we essentially, our belief is we charge considerably more than maybe some of our competitors. And actually, obviously, we were a firm with 0 clients on day one. And so whenever we brought on clients, we know exactly what the price point was before, exactly what the service was, the scope of services. And so I think probably pretty much in 100% of our cases, we are charging more than the predecessor, the incumbent accountant. So we are charging more, even to the point where some of the clients we've taken from Big Four firms, we've doubled or almost tripled some of those fees as well. And that comes back to the value we're delivering to them relative to what they've had before, and actually listening to what they need, listening to what they really want, rather than just making the assumptions and presuming and delivering them service.
Mm-hmm. I heard a really interesting saying yesterday, and it was, I have 2 ears, 1 mouth for a reason.
Yeah, and actually that's something that was drummed into us at PwC was, you have 2 years, 2 years, 1 mouth for a reason, so to listen. And actually it was drummed into us that actually if you go out to a client for a 1 hour meeting, which quite often it tends to be, right, you should be listening for at least 2/3, at least 45 minutes of that, asking questions, listening, actively listening, but also really taking in what that client or that prospect is saying to you, so you can really understand where the pain points and the value you can take to them.
So why don't we jump into this a little bit more, because so when you got into this, I think can you tell us exactly how you did this when you first looked at the market?
Yeah, I think you were supposed to ask us about our growth rates as well, but we can skip that if you want to. It was on the slide.
Okay, we'll go back.
Either way.
Tell us about your growth rate.
If we're running behind on time, then we can skip forward. But.
Please tell us about your growth rate.
So I think this is it's not something to gloat about, but it's obviously from 2 years ago we've had infinite growth because we started with 0 on day 0. But I think it's kind of almost proving the point that as we've gone on our journey, we've also become more embedded, and we've pivoted, we've tweaked, we've developed that model a little bit more. So yeah, from year 1 to year 2, and actually more importantly, there's a demand for this, right? So year 0 to year 1, we had 150% growth rate. Year 1 to year 2, which is the one we're in now, we're forecasting just shy of 400% growth. And we're already, just at the start of Q2, about 190% growth year on year. And our team's gone from less than 12 months ago, so about 8 months ago or so, we had 4 people in the team, getting the tent set up, etc. We're now at 15 people in a diversified model, leveraging outsourcing, leveraging technology, and that sort of stuff. But yeah, so 4 to 15 in about 8 months for a very small company, which has its huge strains as well.
Yeah.
Trying to build that, align everyone to the way in which we do things.
But you have very good culture, so.
Thank you. Actually, that's very, very true. It's something. Actually, culture is something we're super proud of in our firm, and it's kind of it's the nucleus of everything actually of what we do, how we do it, the clients we work with, and we're quite selective with who we work with, but also our people and what they buy into and the way in which they deliver that service. What's so funny?
Laughing. So I guess next, now we're back to this slide. So tell us a little bit more actually about how you have achieved that growth where you're on track to do 400% this year.
Did I derail your slide? So I think, going back to 2 years ago, and even actually as we continue, we've identified different opportunities in the advisory, the consulting market, the consulting space. And I think there's a huge gap. The big four focus on a very top level multinationals in terms of consulting advisory work with them. And then as you trickle down the firms, they really don't apply the same mentality methodology to consulting and advisory services as the big four. Look, and I'm hugely fortunate in that we've got that background, but very much taking that, there's a huge gap in the market, in the SME market, really, to provide those consulting style services. So one, I guess we just saw a big gap in the market, right? And a lot of the time, I use the phrase finance function, and that could be a finance function which is internal to it could be a bookkeeper in a business, for example, or it could be an interim CFO in a business, or it could be an outsourced accounting firm that's performing that finance function. But I use the term finance function. What we quite often see is finance isn't aligned to the business strategy. Finance, they're two separate visions. Even if finance has a vision, they're kind of looking two different ways, and finance quite often doesn't actually sit down with the business and understand what's the vision. What's the strategy? What are the objectives? And so that's actually the first part of which, when we got onto the flinder effect, it's the first part of what we kind of identified is that people just aren't asking those questions. They're just not understanding what the strategy of the business is. And actually, in another extension of that, they're actually not really understanding what the business does. I've had clients before where we've said to them, after a few months, I don't actually think that your previous firm really fully understood your business model. And I've had them say to me, understand it, they've never been out to visit me. And that's in a relationship that's over 12 months long in the previous incumbent. So really kind of we identified that finance and the business weren't working together. Finance wasn't supporting business in their objectives, weren't giving them information, weren't aligning the KPIs and the metrics to what the business strategy was for the business to make decisions, right? So that was one thing. Second thing we identified was that actually finance was being delivered in an inefficient, archaic model. And so what that meant was there was a lot of human manual activities, not optimal, so suboptimal activities and processes happening at kind of an inopportune time in the period. And so that meant that everything was delayed, reporting comes out, it's untimely, it's not aligned, it's just kind of fucking meaningless at the end of the day, right? I'm not allowed to swear on live TV, so sorry about that. It's like, and in a way it's a bit frustrating, but actually great opportunity for us. So we bring in, a kind of a process-driven background, technology, and there are all these off-the-shelf, I'll say off-the-shelf still, there are off-the-shelf applications which are fantastic, and we absolutely explore those as well, but we're now moving into the realms of robotics and applying that into businesses, and kind of really trying to streamline what the operating model, the finance delivery model looks like. And offshoring as well, is another way to improve and become a more efficient finance delivery mechanism. And then I kind of guess, a couple of others there, the raison d'etre that we're all about, why we really exist, is to deliver insight to businesses. You can have all these slick processes, you can have good controls, you can have all this alignment to the business, but at the end of the day, it's all to feed making better management decisions. And so our real focus at the nucleus, we have a hub and spoke model in Flinder, but at the nucleus, at that hub, we're very much, our raison d'etre, our reason for being is very much about delivering rich, real-time management information that delivers such a great amount of insight between the data analytics and what we call business partners or business advisors, for example, an ex-CFO that works in our business. That is delivering insight so that the decision maker can make better informed decisions, and that is what it's all about. And that's kind of like, if you look at what we do in our services, we're leveraging technology, improved controls, data analytics, and the business advisory, and the business advisor, the kind of the ex-CFO or business partner. That's what it all culminates in, making better management decisions. And we saw a big gap in the market, huge gap in the market for that. Yeah. So I was going to say,
yeah.
and so because of that gap in the market, we thought, okay, well, we can fill that void, right? And so it's not none of it's rocket science. And so, going back to what you were saying before, Amy, about 2 years in the mouth, you were giving it for a reason. It all starts at the pre-contracting phase. It all starts with listening to the prospects, understanding what the pain points are, and understanding what they deem as value. Because what we as accountants deem as value or valuable to them is actually different from one client to another. I can say to one client, I can give you this brilliant, set of MI, and actually, I had a call with a client yesterday, and whenever we play back in terms of proposal or scope quote, we always talk about, what we'll deliver in terms of the value. And for them, interestingly, they're new in the UK, so for them, the real value is being handheld through the keeping them out of jail, the compliance stuff actually, more so, whilst there's obviously some other things that we'll be doing for them. But the real value add for them, interestingly, was the fact that we'll keep them out of jail and tell them and hold hand them through the VAT returns, the stats, the tax, etc., the dates, how they operate with Peugeot and all that sort of stuff, right? Because that's what is a real pain point for them right now in their journey and their maturity. So value is in the eye of the beholder, basically. It's listening to each and every client or prospect as to what they want and what their kind of real challenges, real pain points, and playing it back. So already at that pre-contracting point, it's about listening to what the pain points are, not just doing, hey, I can add a load of value in a load of different places. I'll give you this brilliant report, this brilliant thing. It's irrelevant to some clients, right? I'm sorry, I swore again. It's irrelevant to some clients, right? It's about what they deem as value, not what we deem as value as accountants. And then we move into kind of the onboarding phase, right? And so after you've understood the pains and the kind of what they value, it's about understanding the business, it's about understanding the revenue cycles, it's about understanding the processes in the business, so that we can dissect that and really add value in different areas. Because we finance only goes so deep in a business. It's the backbone to everything. Absolutely, my complete philosophy is that finance is the most important part and it's the backbone. But actually, you need to understand the business and the business cycle to really help and really advise clients, and that part is hugely important, to understand the business. So we do that as part of our onboarding. We've got our own methodology in how we view the finance function, and again, as I say, we leverage technology like a lot of kind of modern progressive firms do now. Data is hugely important to us. We have our own data engineering team that we pull data sources and manipulate them into our own API from multiple cloud core applications and do weird and wonderful things with that, not just on reporting but streamlining processes as well. And I guess the last point there really is about having a really refined optimal internal delivery mechanism, so that you can kind of redistribute that resource in a different way.
Yeah.
Well, that's our view, that's our focal point anyway.
Amazing. And so I think you briefly mentioned what you have the wheel and spoke model. The hub and spoke model. So you've obviously got your pillars, your value pillars for Flinder. So it'd be really good if you could explain exactly what the Flinder effect is.
Okay, so the hub and spoke model is something separate. That's more kind of our, if you like, our operating model. No, it's okay. It's more our operating model. Whereas this is our methodology and how we deliver, how we view the finance function. Yeah.
Well, I just thought it looked like spokes.
It does look like hub and spokes, yeah. So this essentially is our methodology and how we, as I say, how we view and how we transform the finance function. So it looks pretty complicated there. The way we actually do is we build it up from kind of ground zero, and we talk about the vision, and then the strategy comes around it. But at the heart of it is the vision, yeah. And one is the vision of the business, to understand it, and then the vision of the finance function. And how does the finance function align to the vision? What does the business want from finance? And kind of, what is that vision for finance? Is it to be data driven? Is it to be compliance driven? Is it something else? Is it to be people focused? Whatever that vision is. And then we wrap the strategic objectives of finance around that vision, and that's the basis for almost how we then model what the finance function looks like. Right, for us, we're very technology driven, as I mentioned, very data focused, and so you then kind of apply those design principles. And on the top part, as I say, it's bloody complicated when you look at it here. On the top part, you've got efficiency, insight, and control, and largely they're the three main competing demands of the finance function. Yeah, one, you want to be as efficient as possible, you want to be as well controlled as possible, and you want to be delivering as much insight as possible, right? But you only have so much resource, so you can't do all things like 10 out of 10. So it's a competition for those. Competing for kind of reaching the points that you want on those three pillars, if you like. But if you're infinitely well controlled, it's at the expense of being efficient. If you're checking, double checking, triple checking, you're clearly not efficient, right? So it's drawing resource back from that. But so you need a nice mix in that, and as I say, your design principles in terms of what your vision is for finance kind of dictates that. Most SME businesses, and I'm generalising here, our clients, they want to be pretty well controlled, pretty efficient, but they really want insight. They want to grow. They want to grow aggressively. But that's just the type of clients we have, because those clients, by nature, the ones we work with, are very dynamic, aggressively growing businesses and great growth potential. So they're kind of the value drivers of finance and those kind of competing demands of finance. Now, that's all supported by the bedrock of what we call our enabling foundations, and that's across people, process, technology, and data. Yeah, and so I know you love the word data, right? And so if you nail kind of the people side of things, having a team, a culture there, really aligned, really focused, behaviours, you trickle down your objectives into your people, they're fully aligned, your people is a very strong kind of enabling foundation to actually get the best out of your finance function. Same for processes. If you have standard processes, everyone knows, they're all documented, they're kind of as streamlined as possible. Again, that's a huge enabler to the rest of the finance function. And then we go on to my favourite two topics, which are technology and data. Leveraging as much technology as possible, you will then become more efficient by definition. Leveraging as much data across the business, perhaps, you can then deliver much more insight. You're taking data from heterogeneous data sources, you're mashing it together, you're delivering something your stakeholders really want, really are asking for to make better decisions. And so, as you can see, the people, process, technology, and data are those enabling foundations. And that's kind of where we stop at viewing what the finance function is. Yeah, the outer layer, the outer rim there, the kind of what we call our 5D methodology is really how we transform a finance function. And so when we bring a new client on, we apply our transformation methodology, these 5Ds, the discover, design, develop, deploy, and do. But equally, when we work with clients on a consulting basis, we then transform their entire finance function. These could be much larger businesses with 10, 20 people in a finance function, and equally it could be a smaller finance function as well. But where we do it just on a consulting basis, we'll then apply that methodology, do a lot of data capture, do a lot of workshopping with them, and transform it through that methodology. So that's essentially the way we view the finance function, the whole the flinder effect, right? And it's the effect of working with flinder. Hopefully it brings you into being a leading practice finance function, technologically enabled, slick processes, high caliber people, and really leveraging data, being data-driven business.
Yeah, of course. And I think that as an accountant, that's how you end up in the space where you are such an asset to that business that can they even function without you if you're providing them that much insight.
So that then leads into the fact that that's exactly what we want. And so it's a really, really sticky, I know like a lot of progressive accounting firms, it's super sticky. We're on a 30-day notice period with our clients. We have We make it so easy for them to sign up, and we make it so easy for them to walk away if they ever wanted to. And we hope they don't, but because it's so sticky, we're so embedded within that business. And I think you had a great anecdote when we were away skiing as to how embedded we are in that business, right?
Yeah. So I mean, you got stuck in the powder, and one of your clients literally was like, "I cannot have anything happen to him. I cannot have anything because my business can't function."
and just before that, Luke was stuck in powder as well. So he was obviously pretty worried about one of us or both of us not coming back. So fully embedded in the business.
So I mean, I guess from our perspective, what is the lifeblood of every single business? Doesn't matter how amazing you are, how profitable, how fast you're growing, etc. Cash is what enables businesses to do things. So cash is king. So for you, I guess, you've got some different views on it. So it'd be great to understand your views on cash burn.
Yeah. So I think cash is a hugely interesting topic, right? Especially for you guys, because it's your whole business,
exactly.
whole business model, right? But and I think 90% of accountants out there will probably agree with me, if not 100%. They have probably seen or heard of businesses that are hugely profitable that have gone bust because of cash and lack of cash monitoring, and lack of understanding where working capital management and that sort of thing. So cash is hugely fundamental in any business.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually going to flip a couple. I'll put them all up now. I'll put up to here, right? So actually, when we talk to our clients, we obviously talk about cash being that lifeblood that we've just mentioned. We talk to our clients. Going back to the fact that some of these metrics are probably more important for businesses that are fast growth and maybe burning cash, have a net burn, and maybe pre-revenue in some instances, right? So we talk about cash burn with our clients. Absolutely, they need to, or net cash. They absolutely need to know how much cash they're burning on an average on a monthly basis, and so. Yeah. Quite simply, it's how much cash is going out of the business on average in a month. Yeah.
Yeah.
And why is that important? Sorry, go on.
Well, it's a classic thing that you'll come across any growing business, because it could be that you're making more money than ever, but every time you sell out of stock and you have a bigger order coming in, you've got to buy more, and you've got to buy more than you bought before and more than you sold. So it's classic cash burn.
So cash burn hugely important in its own right. I think one that I probably neglected to put up there was cash. Cash, period. Cash. I think we talked about it, but then so cash is bloody important in its own right. But then if you move down the kind of the order there, you've got cash zero date. Well, I guess maybe an interesting term for some accountants that have not come across it. But cash zero date is essentially the date you're going to run out of cash, right? So zero cash date, and there's a few ways to look at when that's going to happen. Again, it's quite typical in a startup scenario, maybe less so in a company that's kind of trading and kind of consistently trading. But for us, talking about cash zero date with our clients is hugely important. Well, one, we need to know when we're going to get paid, right? But also we need to help them and really think ahead as to kind of when are they going to run out of cash, when do they need to start raising money, debt or other means, and having conversations, really strong constructive conversations with you well ahead in order to plan for that. So cash zero date, very, very important. Essentially, if a business is burning 20 grand of cash a month and they've got 100 grand in the bank, the cash zero date is 5 months time, right? Now obviously that'll fluctuate depending on is the burn rate going up? Are they hiring more people? Or other kind of, is cash coming in the future, etc., etc. So there are things there which actually make it a bit harder to calculate cash zero date, and that's where forecasting comes in. Majority of our clients we build, and I know you've had Futurely and Spotlight on in the past. Our clients tend to be quite complex, and good relationship with Futurely, talking to them even at the moment in terms of how we can model the complexity of some of our clients, so really trying to work with them. But at the moment we build our own integrated models and work with every one of our clients on a rolling basis of what does your forecast look like, and so that's another way to calculate cash zero date.
No, I completely agree, and I guess what's interesting about it to us is that if you look at SME owners' behaviors, typically, if they don't have a handle on their finances, they'll leave themselves 7 days to get the cash in the bank that they need. So if they're looking at that cash zero date and they're not looking at it 1-2 months ahead in their 7 days, they're forced into short-term lenders, high interest rates. Model this. Let's actually take time, and potentially there's a lot of other advisory services that come around that. So for some accountants, it might be, looking at this, we haven't done any management accounts in 6 months, like, why don't we get you up to date and then move them on to a better service package, and holistically, knowing about the cash in the business and what it always looks like, really does create this position for the accountant to say, for the business not to be able to lose you.
Yeah, absolutely. Being so fully embedded gives you so many more opportunities as well, and you see all parts of the business. I mean, we did a video testimonial that will be released soon in one of our clients, and he said in that we're touching all parts of their business, like not just from a finance perspective, if you remember the one, right? But you're literally touching all parts, all different channels, different people, different parts of the business, and so fully embedded in that organisation. So if we move on here, so we've got here use of cash. So we're still talking about cash, right? Use of cash, OKRs. A lot of people are going to go, what's an OKR, right? So OKRs, again, this is kind of one of the services we provide for some of our clients, some of our larger clients, in terms of helping them define what their strategy is and trickling it down to different departments and different people. So OKRs, it's a US California born there. OKRs, objectives and key results. It's a way of working with a business on their strategy. But essentially, you've got a higher level business objective. You can then filter the objectives down by teams. Then you develop key results for each of those objectives, i.e. hard metrics. And then beyond that, you trickle it down and say, okay, what projects are we going to develop and initiate to meet those key results, right? Whether it's increasing trade sales, for example, right? What are the 3, 4, 5 different projects we're going to put in place to increase trade sales, wholesale sales, whatever it might be, to reach our overall objective? And so we're talking to our clients about the use of their funds. How can they best use the cash that they've got in order to meet their overall objective or get towards their overall objective? So it's about helping them, and we really are in those conversations with helping them define the OKRs and helping them define and distribute the cash and the funds they have to different projects so they can help meet the objectives. So that's a very powerful thing, and really on that kind of the right hand scale towards advisory and being fully embedded with the business. And then the last one on here in terms of cash, I've got real-time analytics. It wouldn't be, Flinder can't go anywhere without talking about data or analytics, right? So on the right of the screen, we've got an example of one of our dashboards. There's kind of 4 tiles on there that are visible, more below that, that are interactive, that are real-time, that basically show the cash flow of the business, cash in, cash out, net cash flow, etc., etc. We've got a similar one for working capital as well, shows a load of ratios. It is very, very powerful for a business to be able to see that, because that's more engaging. These charts suck or grab the attention of the entrepreneur, of the MD of the business, rather than a load of ones and zeros and black and white on paper going, this is your balance, this is this and this and this, right? They get lost in it. So that's why we've kind of gone this way, done it this way, self-serve, real-time reporting that really grabs their attention. And of course we have the conversation with them as well, but this is there to stimulate their thought process.
Amazing. So I think the next thing that we want to explore is this journey that accountants are going on, and it's the journey from compliance to advisory, and it's interesting because I think you see it on a maturity curve and what you can do to get from point A to B, I suppose.
Yeah, and so the first thing I would say, maybe there's some people listening and going, we do compliance, we only ever do compliance, etc. So for me, there's nothing wrong with doing compliance, right? I was in a business unit in a Big Four for, 8 years or so, where essentially all we did was compliance, right? It's assurance. And They talk about value add, and they talk about this, that, and the other, but at the end of the day, compared to other parts of the business, they were doing compliance. Nothing wrong. Huge part of the business, right? 1 to 1.5 to 2 billion revenue in that firm for compliance. And so, compliance is there, it'll always be there. Yeah, there'll be tools that make it slicker, easier, quicker, whatever, but compliance is there. People make a lot of money from compliance, so don't knock it, but for us as a firm, we engage and enjoy doing more of that other type of work, right? So that's kind of why we're an accounting and consulting boutique. So where we are here is what we're trying to demonstrate here is, the root or the value we see in our clients. I'm not saying everyone sees this, and I gave an example earlier how one client actually had a lot of value from compliance. So it does depend from client to client or business to business, and maybe this isn't to scale, so it does show there's a tiny little bit of value there. But you should probably start a lot higher up, but just really to kind of represent this. To begin with, there's that value that businesses get from compliance. It keeps them out of jail. It gets things done for them. It gets their tax returns of stats done. It takes a headache away from them, so they can focus and concentrate in the business. So absolutely value there, right? Then we move into what I call this kind of advisor 0.1, advisor version 0.1. So there's this kind of shift in mindset, and actually I'd go back and say I think all accountants apply an element of advisory support to their clients, right? They do, without doubt, but it's the level of advisory support that they focus on. But I think accountant is I could go off and talk a whole webinar on what an accountant is, right? But an accountant is such a wide, varied profession in terms of tax accountant, right? In terms of performance management or management accountant, corporate accountant, auditor, etc. And even when you get into tax accountant, you could talk about R&D tax, you talk about VAT specialists. People dedicate their life to a small portion of tax, let alone general practitioner. So that's a whole other topic. But what we're saying here is, so this advisor version 0.1, there's a shift almost for someone to go, actually, I'm going to have different type of conversations with my client, right? And as soon as that happens, they kind of shoot up a little bit on the value curve, as you can see there. There's a bit of stepping, and then if you look at the gradient, it's a bit more steep. So at that point, the version 0.1 advisor, if you like, my view is that that's someone who provides reactive support. So something's going on in the business, and 48% of the accountants come and speak. 48% of the businesses come and speak to them, and they're like, "Yeah, great. Let's have this conversation. I can do that for you. I can do this for you. Let's talk about this, that, and the other." Right? And they're starting to get a lot more value from that. But then if you move forward into look to an advisor 1.0, and as if by magic. Advisor 1.0, again it steps up again, but this is the more proactive advisor, yeah? And as again you can see the gradient swoops up, and this is where you have a bloody happy client, loads of value, and actually you're providing kind of more advisory-led services, a lot more proactive, talking to them about their strategy, taking information to them, taking roadmaps to them, that more consultative, not just this is what you can do, these are what other people are doing, but let me execute it with you, and this is a roadmap to doing it. And that kind of full journey of consulting is kind of where we're striving and going towards. And as I say, our logo is on the right hand side there. Whereabouts it is on the right hand side, I don't know. We're certainly not on the top far right hand side. We are on a journey like everyone else is, but we have the fortunate position of the backgrounds that we've had working in consulting and advisory roles in a Big Four, and seeing exactly the strategic side of things and how that's working and the value people can get. And that's, we're doing more and more of that type of stuff for SMEs and applying the same principles.
Yeah. No, I would completely agree. And so even if we relate it back to the last example, if you're looking at between 1 and 2, how we talked about the SMEs with the 7 days, they're still coming to you and you've got the answer to that question and you can support them, but that's reactive. If you're starting to move into the right hand side of this is maybe you are using Futurely, Spotlight, whoever to do your forecasting.
Or Flinder Analytics.
Yeah, Flinder Analytics to do your forecasting. You see a cash flow gap, or you hear a client coming in saying that they're looking to hire, and 2 months from now they're going to bring on a new sales team. It's moving into this area of where you can plan and help implement instead of them coming to you after they've already done something.
It's the proactiveness. It's the taking something to them or being involved in that decision making process.
Yeah.
It's about the execution. If you're involved in the execution of some of those projects, you're so embedded in that business.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Alastair. So I guess we've covered quite a bit in terms of the Flinder business model, funding, how you can actually basically make yourself indispensable to a business through just value-added services. So I guess for us when we're looking at this, what are the key takeaways from this?
Is this my slide? Are you asking me? Okay, so I think the key takeaways from this, from my perspective, are, talking about cash is hugely important, and I kind of walk through 4 or 5 ways that we talk to our clients about cash. A lot of it's about future-focused cash information and what they're going to do with that cash, and being involved in the decisions and being really deep within the strategy of the organisation. That's hugely important, and obviously on a cash basis, if your client's needing cash, then come speak to you, Amy. We walk through the maturity curve the way we see it, in terms of that stepping from compliance-led to kind of starting to dip your toes into advisory as a reactive advisor, and then kind of moving to a proactive advisor. There's a whole host of different areas that we provide our clients, from strategy through to data analytics, through to finance function transformations, through to executing different projects, and that's kind of where we're on the, I would say, more to the right of the curve. So that would be it from my perspective.
Amazing. Well, I guess it's been great to have you here. Not I guess. It has been great to have you here.
Well, these are our offices, so it's been great to have you here. So.
And thank you so much for sharing your insights. It's obvious that Alastair is doing something right, given the level of the relationships that he does have with his clients. And so if you guys have any questions or comments, we would be happy to answer them.
I'd say, Amy, we're not doing everything right. We're doing things that we think are working, but there's always a journey and ways to more to learn.
Okay, so we do have one question here, and it is, what is the typical turnover of your client base?
So because we have different services, we have organisations in our client base, from accounting to consulting. We have businesses that range from pre-revenue, so startup businesses here in London. We work with a lot of tech businesses, so that would be 0 revenue. Our largest client, we've got a couple of clients up in the £35 million mark. Now that's a huge range, and the couple that are up at that end, they are largely, I would say, they're consulting projects, so they're enterprise system implementations, finance function transformations. But if you look at the average size of our client, you could probably say it's between 2.5 and 10 million, maybe 2.5 and 7.5 million revenue is probably the typical size of business. Probably about 25, 30 employees, thereabouts. So reasonably complex, but they're not in the realms where they need a CFO.
Yeah.
And we perform that CFO function for them.
Yeah. But I think what's interesting is right now we are in this age of hyper business growth, where a lot of people are just hungry to get to that next stage in their business. So even if now you've got those clients who've been trading 2 years, and they maybe turn over a couple £100,000. Those are the businesses that in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years are going to 2 million, 5 million, 10 million pounds revenue. And I think the vision for every accountant is to want to go from start of that business and then all the way and take the client through the journey through to exit. Because everybody's that's, and you want that business when it's at 2 million, and you want that business when it's at 5 million.
So absolutely right. So very importantly, the earlier you work with, or certainly our view is, the earlier we work with a business, the better it is to get their infrastructure set up properly. It's so, and I say to business, it's so hard to unwind a shitty finance infrastructure and to migrate them, to do all that. It's so much harder than it is just to get them set up and charge them a certain price point, and then grow. The fee price grows as they grow. And it becomes a natural kind of symbiotic relationship with them as they grow. Yeah.
Okay, so we have another question, and Alastair, what is your primary source of leads for new business, and how much does your website feed this?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So right now, and my marketing person sat opposite, laughing at right now at that. So right now, I would say in the last 12 months, probably about 95% of our leads have been from referrals. we have a very high referral rate from our clients, very, very high conversion from that as well. They are hot leads, obviously, because they've been referred by someone that's already going through an experience and kind of working with us. So, and that, excuse me, that 95% includes both actual clients and maybe investors of clients as well. So when we work with our clients, we also interact and deal with the investors. We sit in board meetings, we essentially act as that CFO and face off to the investors. We deliver to the investors for forecasts and that sort of stuff. So very much, and partners as to a certain extent as well. But yeah, so probably 90-95% is client to client related where it's come from. Now that will shift going forward. So we're making a bit more of a surge on our data analytics side of things. I mentioned it's significantly higher margin, and there'll be a much more digital digital acquisition strategy for that, which Jamie, who's sat over there, will be responsible for executing. So there's going to be a lot more things coming out, a lot more lead magnets and that sort of stuff. So digital acquisition for our data analytics clients coming on board, kind of, I know, in the next 4 to 6 weeks onwards, to really kind of drive that side of the business.
Amazing. And the follow-on question from that
there's another one up here as well, which we'll go to in a second. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
No, we can do this one.
We can do this one. How many clients can you? So the follow-on to that one was, how many clients can you deal with in your current setup?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what deal with me, because maybe backtrack a little bit. So on that, so we're in a position now whereby we're queuing clients up because we can't bring them on board. So we have 15 people across our business in different functions. We've got one in marketing, we've got 2 in data analytics, and the majority of them are in finance, of course. Now, we are in a position whereby we are probably looking to hire a new person every month for the foreseeable future, and foreseeable future is 18 months, 24 months, something like that. And so we are stacking clients up with future signed letters of engagement, but with future start dates, because we can't actually support them right now.
Yeah.
So, but we have a pipeline of clients that are signed, and we have a pipeline of talent that we're trying to acquire as well. And so, okay, I'll come to that in a second. So there's another one. And so right now we're probably at a max position for our clients from a finance perspective, but we're bringing new staff on all the time and kind of embedding them in the Flinder way of doing things. We have a very, very specific, as you can see, methodology, but also way of working with our clients. It's very, 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 not quite brainwashing them, but it's very much, there's a very certain specific way of doing things with our clients. Very, looking at very, very clear on what we're doing, how we're doing it.
Yeah, so what I would say is, as a common theme that I've seen in the accounting industry, is people used to say, okay, I'm going to have 300 clients and all I'm going to do is just bang out their compliance for them. And I'm going to use technology, I'm going to leverage that so that I can just get this done. I don't actually have to talk to my clients. But now I see more and more people saying, actually, I don't need those 300 clients. All I need are 100 clients, but I need to do everything for them so that I can charge them 4 times more. Because if you have 300 clients and you charge them a third less, or if you've got 100 clients and you have and you do charge them 4 times more, your revenue is still the same, but then every client you bring on, you add more and more value, you have less churn, and you ultimately have, as they grow, you can extract more value about that around the services you add into them. So even say funding can be used as a service. So every client that you bring on, if you, instead of just doing the compliance piece on that, you can stand to extract revenue out of that client in that way too. So I think what...
And I'm happy to answer that one as well. So how many clients per advisor is a metric? My view is roughly between... clients come in different shapes and sizes, so a client that might have a smaller revenue might be more complex, for example, but I would say our target is between 15 and 20 clients per business advisor or business partner, and that's largely because the business partner's role is to be the relationship, be the very strategic senior CFO role, but we have a team of people doing things below that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it works, and ultimately, we do have pods as well, but ultimately it's a pyramid model, a bit like what I've grown up with in PwC. So yeah, probably about 15 to 20.
You mean the big 4?
Yeah, I'm happy to say. I'll have to connect with him.
Amazing. So then another question we have is, what is an example of a transformation?
Good question. What's an example of transformation? So for us, a transformation is moving from the current pretty crappy state a business might be into a leading practice state, whatever that might be. And so I'll give you two examples of transformations where we're working on a few different things that fall within our consulting division's a strong word when you've only got 15 people, but the consulting strand of what we do, we've got both about 35 million revenue, as I mentioned before. One of those clients, they have 50 legal entities, big group, 50 legal entities. They're doing a rationalisation, but they're on an old antiquated finance system. We need to harmonise the chart of accounts. We're basically putting in a new finance system, right? An enterprise finance system across about 10 legal entities or so. And so we're going through our 5D methodology, the whole discover, design, deploy, etc., etc. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so that one's essentially, it's transforming the finance function in a new system that's going in, ways of working, new processes that we'll be doing through procure to pay, record to report, and order to cash. We'll be doing new processes in there, leveraging technology. We'll be putting in new data analytics. We'll be putting new real-time reporting in for them as well, as part of some data analytics. But the big part there, the consulting, is the moving from the current state of finance systems and the array that they have to a harmonised chart of accounts, everyone bought in, new ways of working, to a new enterprise finance solution and training on it, right? And so that's a proper execution roadmap of what we're doing there. Another example is for a business, they've got about 50 outlets or so. We're doing a full finance function transformation, and actually we're only doing a first phase there. So that first phase there, it's roughly in the realms of £30,000 for one phase, and probably the most lean phase in terms of activity as well. That's the discovery phase, and so for them we're doing a full finance function transformation. But the first phase in discovery, that's very much data capturing, understanding the volume of time people are spending on activities, interpreting that, where's the wasted hours, where are the opportunities, doing a reporting blueprint workshop, identifying all these quick wins and almost coming up with, here are a load of things that we think need to change, let's move into the next phase of the project. This is almost like the very high level bang for your buck. If you implement all these changes, implement to the next phase of the project. I've actually got like one of our sheets. This is our methodology here, but in the transformation methodology from a proposal. So not just in a circle, but it's kind of different phases. So largely, the discovery phase is around mobilization, it's around defining the vision and strategy and aligning it to the business, assessing the current state in terms of number of hours, number of employees, what they do across each different area within finance, preparing the business case and setting out that high level future operating model, and then presenting, getting business sign off to move to the next phase, which would be to design what the new finance function of tomorrow looks like, the 2B. Hopefully that answers that.
Okay, so I think that is it for now in terms of questions. If anybody has anything else, feel free to reach out. We're happy to answer anything via email. But thank you so much, Alastair, for joining us today, and everybody else. I think it's been very educational.
Awesome.
Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks very much. Take care.
Bye.